Blog Talk Radio.
Coming up, a look back at the year 2013, a look ahead at the year 2014, another interview with Dr. Sowmya on homeopathic remedies, another interview with Leslie Ann Stoddard talking about shady marketing, and some of my favorite interviews will be played on this episode. You are listening to Nick Brannigan on Health Conspiracy Radio.
Is there a health conspiracy?
Life is going to go on healthconspiracy.com in a form of a blog. And now here's the brand new interview with Dr. Sowmya Sridharan, where we're going to talk about how to actually cure certain diseases through homeopathy. So here, this is my favorite guest and sponsor of the show, Dr. Sowmya Sridharan. You can find out more from her at Las Vegas Homeopathy.com. Welcome back. This is Nick Brannigan with Health Conspiracy Radio, and I have returning to the show Dr. Sowmya Sridharan, who's been a guest that I'm sure you're all familiar with by now, and we are going to continue from the conversation we had last time regarding homeopathy and what it can do for you and some actual diseases that it cures. So welcome back, Dr. Sowmya.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I think this is the first time I'm not interviewing you in person. We are connected through Skype, so it's kind of weird for me.
Yes, it is. I mean, I was kind of surprised, when you said Skype, but, oh well, technology, right?
Yeah, technology it's crazy. But we're not here to talk about Skype. They get too many free plugs for me as it is. Let's talk about homeopathy, because there's a lot of diseases and ailments that you yourself have cured through your patients. And we talked briefly before we went on the air about some of them. And one thing that kind of really, the one that stood out to me the most, I would say, is food allergies, because a lot of people suffer from food allergies and food intolerances, which are a little less mild than food allergies. But let's start there. And can you give us some examples of maybe patients that you've seen with certain food allergies that you were able to cure with homeopathy?
Yeah, I will, Nick. Before I go into that, I actually want to say this. Most people, when they go onto the website, my Las Vegas Homeopathy.com website, they actually, that's how conventional medicine is. They always go and look at the specialties, and they call and ask if, do you specialize in this? Does your office do that, do this? But homeopathy is one system of medicine, or any system of medicine should really target your whole body, and that's how homeopathy is. All these diseases has actually come from conventional medicine, the different diagnoses that we call. And so we actually go into that same mode now and explain to people that, yes, we treat this, we treat that, and all those things. But anything that a person comes with, it's, one body. It's not a specialization, really. It doesn't need a rocket scientist to figure that out.
Yeah, let me just elaborate on that a little bit, because one thing I was surprised, you had a talk we put together last month, and I learned a lot of stuff. And not that I'm saying I'm an expert or I know everything, because I certainly don't, but I always get surprised when I learn so much new stuff. And one of the things that I learned from the talk specifically, the thing that stood out the most was when you said the reason there's so many, what we call side effects to prescription drugs is because these drugs are not designed to target one part of the body. It's impossible for them to do so. So what they do is they affect every cell in the body. So when you see a drug, like my friend, he went to take a drug for numbness in his right arm, and he put the list of side effects on his Facebook page, and there was, I want to say, no less than 50, probably closer to 100. And
wow.
Like you explained, the reason for that is every cell in the body is being affected by this drug, not just the numbness that is trying to get rid of in his left arm. That's why there's over 50 side effects.
That's why you're fighting against the body. See, conventional medicine works in an opposite way. That is, if there is numbness, it's trying to stimulate the nerves. But if you actually, stimulate your own body's innate ability to heal, then you heal completely everywhere in every single cell. And stimulating the body's innate ability in every single cell is so much more important than trying to just suppress a symptom. So now that I've said that about homeopathy, you can actually understand that it treats all the diseases or anything that comes in your body. But still, for people's understanding about diseases now, I do want to elaborate on certain diseases so that they understand how actually homeopathy treats and, what are the results that we have seen with our own patients.
Yeah, so let's pick up with food allergies.
I actually want to talk about this one child who was like maybe 13 years old or something, and he wasn't thriving well. And his dad saw me a couple times, and he was, he kept talking about this kid, and he said he wasn't thriving. He had these teeth which was just crumbling, literally, because, he wasn't really growing well, and he had all sorts of allergies, like, milk intolerance. He had allergies to like many vegetables, like, he couldn't do strawberries, he couldn't do green peppers, red peppers, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and so many other things. I can't even remember every single thing that he had. So many food sensitivities that he couldn't tolerate so many foods, and he had diarrhea-like symptoms. So he wasn't really growing well, and his dentist said that he probably need like a crown on every single teeth. Every single tooth needed a crown because it was just crumbling. And that's how they actually came into my office. The first, that the child came to my office first with their parents, but then the whole family became a patient, literally. But this child, so we started treating him for the inability to thrive, and also milk intolerance and all the food sensitivities that he had. So essentially what was happening was in this child, the immune system was overstimulated. So anything that he was eating, his body was just reacting too much, which shouldn't be the case. When you're normal, your immune system is normal, it just reacts to whatever needs to be reacted to. Something that's foreign, it reacts to badly. If it's something that's good for you, it doesn't react. It takes it, absorbs the nutrients from it and thrives from it. But that's not how this was in this child. So I treated him for 4 months, and I actually, they thought that it was very important for him to drink milk. So I actually told him to drink raw milk rather than, regular milk, because regular milk is pasteurized, and I'm so not happy with that. And actually he was able to even tolerate milk after 4 months of treatment, and he was able to eat all the other vegetables that he was eating. And I saw the child after maybe a year or so, and he was so tall I could not even recognize him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, with the process of those food allergies going away, is that not too complicated to get into details on how you treated him to where 4 months later he can tolerate all these foods that he couldn't before?
It's not especially, the foods that we target. See, when you actually think about allergies, what they do is they take each food and they desensitize your body for that food. But that doesn't help. What you need to do so the treatment was essentially to make his immune system optimal. Rather than becoming overstimulated or understimulated, that is, being compromised, suppressed immune system. When steroids are taken, that's what happens to the immune system. It gets compromised. But that's not what we did. We actually gave him a treatment for his own personality and also for his own constitution to improve his immunity. So every single cell in his body was, working well, and his digestive system was working well. He was asked to eat various kinds of different foods, and also given smoothies every single day, first thing in the morning, so at least one raw meal per day, and then also given a homeopathic remedy to improve his immunity. And once that happened, his immune system became stronger so that he wasn't overreacting to these things anymore.
Yeah, that really is amazing how that can happen, especially in this world that we live in, to where that almost seems like magic to most people, but I don't think they realize that our bodies are magic, and
Exactly. I was about to say that, see, many of the people who hear this may think all of this is just, too good to be true. I don't think this is true. But it's not just homeopathy is, doing this. Homeopathy is just stimulating the body's innate, healing ability. That's all. Your body is amazing on its own, and that's what is doing all the magic, really. But you just have a system of medicine that is able to stimulate that healing ability rather than suppress it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to put it. And let me ask you this real quick. Well, first of all, I want to point out to people that are listening to this outside of Las Vegas is that you do Skype consultations as well. I know I was just making fun of us being on Skype, but you can actually treat people over Skype. Is that correct? Yes.
I have patients from Montana, Arkansas, California, and so many different places.
Now, another thing I want to ask you too, then we'll get back to specific diseases that you say homeopathy cures. Now, people are in the alternative medicine field are funny about using the word cure. But with that being said, when I hear that from those people, those are really naturopaths and people that aren't actually doctors like yourself. Now, do you have any issues with saying that word cure or versus why?
No, I don't, because it really does cure. When you actually see a patient, for example, I had a person who had hives, and she has had it all her life, and she was on drugs and things like that when she was young, but she is not anymore. And she was, she had hives for so long. Every single thing was actually affecting her. And I saw her maybe 3 years ago, and she doesn't have any of those symptoms anymore. And I just saw her recently, maybe like, a couple months ago. And she wanted to come in, and I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, it has nothing to do with the hives. I have not had it even once after that. I just have, something else that's going on that's more acute, and I just wanted to come and, consult with you.
Yeah, and here's another thing, too, is that I found that you will turn down business, so to speak, because you don't look at people's business. I had a friend that I know through GMO-Free Vegas. I gave him some of your flyers. He referred his sister. And next time I saw him, you said she was healthy and you really didn't need to take her on as a patient, and you told her to drink raw green juices for 30 days. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but I thought that was interesting. I
did.
Yeah, do you know the person I'm talking about?
I do. I kind of think I know, yes.
Yeah,
but I also to, some of my, people who come for a 30-minute free consultation, like I do a 30-minute free consultation for people who don't know anything about homeopathy and want to make sure that this is the right path for them. I do a 30-minute free consultation so they can just come in and understand what it is rather than just pay for it, up front. So, I think that's the person. She came in and I said, she doesn't need any treatment.
Yeah, that's amazing because most conventional doctors, you get a person in there and they're already paying them, too much just for the visit. Then they see dollar signs in their eyes and do everything they can to milk that money train and keep them coming back and not actually cure them. And it's just disgusting, but it's refreshing, knowing an actual doctor who would turn someone away because you don't look at it as business you're turning away. You look at it as that's a person who doesn't need me. Yeah. But continuing with specific diseases that you're able to cure, I think autoimmune disorders is something that people aren't too familiar with. So can you maybe briefly explain what that is for people that don't know, and then elaborate on an example you've used to get that out of one of your patients?
Sure. Autoimmune disorders are nothing but your own body attacking itself. It could be a certain organ, or it could be certain tissues. If it starts attacking itself, then you will have a disease in there. And in conventional medicine, there is no other treatment other than suppressing your immunity, because your immunity is what is really starting to attack that organ. But again, because, with homeopathy, so examples of autoimmune disorders would be Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disease. So here the thyroid is actually getting destroyed by the antibodies. And even though people, might not really accept it, that is in conventional medicine, that autoimmune disorders are caused by vaccines, it's really true. There are so many autoimmune disorders nowadays, and I have heard so many of my patients say this to me. I took this shot, and then, after 3 months, I started having these symptoms. So anyone who is out there listening to this, if you have had, any vaccines and you started having symptoms because of that, it's most probably because of the vaccine that you started having this autoimmune disorder. So, and I can, elaborate on that a little bit. Autoimmune disorders are nothing but you having antibodies against your own cells. So antibody means anti is opposite or against, and body is your body. So antibodies are produced against viruses or bacteria. That is something that's foreign to your body. But if this antibody stays in your bloodstream for quite some time, it will start attacking your own cells because it doesn't have anything else to do. And when it does, you have a problem. If it attacks a few cells, you won't realize it. But if if it starts attacking maybe 1,000, 1,000,000 cells, then if it's a whole organ that's affected, yes, we will start to see the symptoms. And psoriasis is, again, another type of autoimmune disorder, and it, of course, happens on the skin. And I can actually give you an example of my patient whom I have treated for psoriasis. And this girl, she's actually a doctor's daughter. Her father is he was I think he was actually I think he was
is he a conventional medical doctor?
Yeah, a regular medical doctor. I was just thinking about his specialty, but it evades me now. So he was the one who actually found me and gave her the number, because they had actually tried so many things and she wasn't getting well at all. And she was at a point where, she was asked to do chemotherapy for her problem. And he didn't want that to happen to his own daughter. So he said, you know what, we'll have to find something else for you. And so he found this, he found my number and gave it to her, and then she came in. And she had actually, had the same problem for almost, 15, 16, 17 years. So it was not something that was recent. So she was under treatment for a whole year. But then her symptoms completely went away. She doesn't have any more patches at all.
That's amazing, and amazing that a medical doctor, not that they're all completely boxed in the system, but that he was smart enough to look up homeopathic treatment for that.
No, what he did was it was a joke that she was actually making. He kept saying to her, I don't know how this works, but I'm glad it works.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to know how. You really don't need to know how for the most part. I mean, we turn on the light when we come in a room, and we don't know how that light switch sends the electrical circuit to that lamp or that light bulb. And we eat food, and most people don't know how your body actually digests that food and excretes it in the waste. But it happens. It works.
Yes, it works.
So also too, one of the commercials that we run on this show is a lady talking about how her son was cured of autism. And I think maybe going back to vaccines for a second, because what you said with the autoimmune disorder, if I'm understanding this correctly, basically the body's attacking itself due to an imbalance that is caused by vaccination. Did I say that correctly?
Vaccinations, what they do is they produce antibodies against an antigen that's not even there. That is, let's say, a flu vaccine. If you haven't come across the flu, then you don't have the flu antigen in your body. But you're already producing antibodies against that flu, which is not there. So let's say that this antibody is circulating in your bloodstream. Naturally, this doesn't have anything else to do. Its purpose is to attack the antigen or the foreign substance. But if it doesn't have the foreign substance, what can it do? So after a point of time, it starts attacking your own cells.
Now, linking that to autism, there's some doctors that say autism is the direct effect of vaccination. Have you come across that in your research? Yes,
I have. I have seen not only just that. I would also want to mention this. Some of my patients who are autistic, these kids have actually not taken vaccinations, but they also have autism because their parents were on really long-term drugs or medications for just before the pregnancy or during the pregnancy. This has also affected the child, and the child becomes autistic even because of that. So it's not just the vaccines alone. There are so many things in our environment today that we are not able to control, and there are so many things that are affecting these things now. So those things need to be paid attention to. Again, here, elimination will be one of the things to do. So what has really caused this? So if we can, we'll try to neutralize the effects of those drugs. And also, if there is a vaccine, then we'll have to go back and neutralize them for a vaccine, and then, give them treatment for whatever problems that they have, on a regular basis. And the mother that actually gave the testimonial on the commercial, I'll talk about that child. He actually came in. When he came in, he couldn't even say alphabets properly. Or he could, but, you couldn't understand what he was saying, really. But he was actually treated for at least a year or a year and a half, and now he actually takes a homeopathic remedy maybe once a month or so, just to keep that, effect. I'm not really seeing him on a regular basis anymore, but his mom, emails me and reports that he's doing very well. And with all the other problems that he had, that is social, behavioral, he also had a lot of obsession and attention deficit. He had so many issues. He had food sensitivities. He couldn't, he had problems with certain textures, and all of those are gone now. And he's actually doing well at school. He's been, he's actually going to a regular school now. So it's actually a pretty amazing thing what homeopathy has done.
Yeah, that is amazing. And just to backtrack for a second on something else you said was that autism can be caused too by parents' heavy use of was it prescription drugs? And how does that work? It affects them on the genetic level?
Yes, because anything that you actually take, it does affect you on a genetic level, whether we want to believe it or not. It actually changes your DNA. And especially if it was just before the pregnancy or during the pregnancy, of course, it's going to go directly to the child. And I know a child who's autistic because his dad was on steroids for many, many years. And the mother got pregnant while he was on steroids because he had a kidney failure. And the mother was never on drugs. I mean, she never took prescription drugs. But because of the father, his DNA was affected. And, of course, the gamete that he produces from that isn't going to be very well. So the child, ended up autistic even though he never took vaccinations, because I know that family for quite some time. And I told them not to do vaccines to that child, and they never did.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it kind of works the same way as the GMOs in some of these rat and hamster studies, to where by the time it gets to the third generation, first generation's fed GMOs, second generation's fed GMOs, third generation is not fed GMOs, but yet it's sterile because
exactly.
the genetic coding or the DNA has been affected by those first two generations. So by the time it gets down to the grandkids of the original generation, their genetic coding or their DNA is already messed up from the genetically modified organisms.
See, what we have to understand is your genes are not essentially just from your mother and father, but it's ancestral. What that means is from your great-grandfather, great-grandmother, and, great-great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers. And from both sides, you have parts of their DNA from so long ago. That's why we look like, maybe 3 generations ago, like somebody. Just because we still carry some parts of each and every single person. So whatever you do to your body, you're not essentially stopping it with your child. You're, passing it to many, many generations after that.
Yeah, and that's a point I try to make to people is, like, I have a family member who says, I understand you want to eat healthy, but you might get hit by a bus tomorrow. So
yeah.
he eats the way he wants. I said, well, what if you have kids? And those kids, you're eating the way you want right now, but if you have kids, you are passing that down to them on a level of genetics. So you can go out and eat all the GMOs you want and drink the fluoride and all that other crap, but that's going to affect your children that aren't even on this planet yet.
No, but the thing is, what people don't understand is this. Not only that, you could die tomorrow. Yes, I could die tomorrow, but that's okay. The thing is, if I am going to be alive, I actually want to do the right thing until I'm alive, because I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to have all kinds of problems. All the things that they are doing to their body today doesn't end up in the toilet. Literally, it doesn't. It stays in your body for many, many years. And just because they feel better today doesn't mean that they have to keep doing the worst things to their body constantly, because it's going to catch up today or tomorrow. And once many cells have been affected, they're going to have trouble.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it, because energy is what matters. Because you may not get hit by a bus tomorrow. You probably will be alive for another 50 years, so why don't you have great energy and live life to the fullest by getting rid of these symptoms, by trying homeopathy if your conventional doctor is failing you. But you mentioned, when I brought up autism, I believe you said something about ADHD. Now, I recently read a headline, and I won't be able to say this for certain. Maybe I'll look into it on the break, but the guy who came up with the disease ADD or ADHD admitted on his deathbed that was not a real disease, or is a fictitious disease. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but I know you have had children that has been diagnosed with ADHD, and you were able to get rid of that. Is that the case?
Yeah. The sad thing about this is there's a lot of things that actually are happening because of foods too, and people don't understand that. A lot of preservatives and colors and additives in the food, they actually cause symptoms that are making people, kids hyper. I mean, you just give your kid 3 candies or 5 candies, a big bar of chocolate, 5 big bars of chocolate, and look at them. Within that, maybe in the next hour or so, they're going to behave hyper. Okay, they just in a sugar rush, and we know that too, right? So these kids are fed these foods on a regular basis, but they're expecting the child to perform, greatly in every single aspect. And also our school system is actually not the best, because they expect that every child should, sit crisscross and look at the teacher and just do everything that they say to the T. There should be no distraction. Child should not turn. They should be sitting there for 8 hours a day, every single day. And that doesn't make sense because children are not made that way.
Well, that's how they want to make them. That's a whole other subject. But continue, please.
Yes. And there was this one child who was actually in a private school, and the parents brought the kid to me. He was only 4 years old, and they said, oh, he has ADHD and he needs to be treated. And I said, no, he doesn't have ADHD. I mean, I'm not saying that every child doesn't. I do treat ADHD, to many, there are so many kids who do have it. And they have a lot of problem in, certain things. And, of course, I try to change their diet and all those things and then give them remedy to make them concentrate and be able to do what they are supposed to do or what they need to do. At least follow, simple commands or complex commands as they get older and be able to follow through with their responsibilities as they get older. These are some things that are expected out of, kids as they grow up. So those things are, supposed to happen. But a 4-year-old, they expect them to sit just in one place without having to do anything for 45 minutes to an hour. And if the child doesn't do it, the parents were called in and said that the child had ADHD. And when I actually saw this child, I told them that actually the child didn't have it, and they didn't want to hear nothing of it. They wanted a diagnosis. They wanted treatment for it. And they might have actually found another doctor who's treating that child right now, but I just feel sad to say that.
Yeah, and that is a shame. And for one thing, to kind of to back up what you said about how the food dyes, if you type into any search engine, food dye symptoms, you will get pages and pages of parental testimonial saying, I took my kid off of artificial colorings and food dyes and his ADHD went away, which makes me say, well, maybe it's not exactly ADHD, maybe it's a side effect of these artificial petrochemicals that are putting into these children's food and cereal and fruit snacks and all that stuff.
Yes, and also gluten, wheat and especially GMO gluten is a big, big problem. We see that in everything, and that's also causing a lot of problems with their, nutrition, and also it's actually causing a lot of problems with their digestion. And of course, when our digestion gets affected, everything is going to get affected, whether we like it or not, because that's where all our nutrients, are, and that's, what we absorb our foods from. Every single cell absorbs the foods from the digestive system and works with it. So without a good digestive system, you can't really have any other organs that's functioning at its optimal.
Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it. Like a lot of people say disease starts in the gut. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
All right. So also, too, I know we a couple other things you brought up was shingles. Can you briefly explain what shingles are for those that don't know and give an example of how you cure them with your homeopathy treatment?
People who have actually had chicken pox earlier, when they were a child or something, later on it could be because of stress. Again, vaccines could actually bring on shingles again because it causes stress in the body. Most of the time stress and, life situations can actually bring on shingles. It's just a bunch of nerves that are affected by these virus, the chickenpox virus. It affects these nerves, and the patient starts to have rash-like symptoms and severe pain wherever that nerve goes. For example, on the back, most of the people have it on their back or their chest, and it'll be like a certain region of their back wherever a certain nerve comes out and supplies, gives out different branches. All these branches will be affected from that particular nerve, and all of that area will be severely painful because of a nerve affectation. So whenever a nerve is affected, it will always cause severe pain. So this is shingles, and I've actually treated many people for shingles because with conventional medicine there is no treatment for shingles other than antiviral and also pain medications and steroids. This is all they can do. They cannot really get rid of shingles. But with homeopathy, you can actually relieve pain and also heal the nerves that were affected by the virus rather than just suppress the virus. So once you heal it, the person really doesn't get shingles back again. And it's not something that they have to live forever. I've at least treated, people with who have been affected by stress, people who have been affected after a flu vaccine. One person actually got the shingles after a month of getting a flu vaccine. And another patient was actually, he had a really, really stressful situation in his life. He lost his wife. and there were lots of things going on, and he started having shingles. So in all these cases, what I've seen is that not only the symptoms go away completely with homeopathic treatment, but also they actually feel better. Again, I'm not just treating them for shingles, I'm treating them as a whole. So everything else that they have a problem in, their digestive system gets, relieved. If they have had migraines, it gets relieved. If they have, constipation gets relieved. Anything and everything gets relieved. So they actually feel so much better going out rather than coming in.
Also, it treats the body as a whole. So people except that's probably the two biggest, what you said, chronic constipation and inflammation are probably the two biggest ailments with the disgusting, gross, standard American diet.
Yes.
Do you have people coming in overall too, and I think we talked about this before on air, but who really just need to learn to be healthier and like they go to health coaches, but the health coaches, they take a class. A lot of them aren't healthy themselves. So are you, in your practice, in addition to specific diseases that are cured, do you do help people out who just need to know how to eat better and feel better? Yes.
General well-being. We do something called general well-being, which is actually it's like a 3-month course or something that they can do, and it's a specific overall cost, just one-time cost that they'll do for a 3-month course, and they can come in any time and get any amount of consultations and get any amount of advice, anything about whatever that does about their body they can. And I do have so many of these patients who are generally healthy but want to get better and stay well. Whenever they have a small symptom, they don't want to go, that path. They just want to stay healthy. So they do come to me for that.
Yeah, and another thing you brought up, and you got to forgive my ignorance, is epilepsy. And I was thinking narcolepsy, where people fall asleep. But that's something completely different. So can you tell me real quick what epilepsy is?
There are many different types of epilepsy, grand mal and all of those. So when, somebody could actually have seizures, febrile seizures, and they could actually start with a fever, like especially in children it happens. They could actually have a very high temperature, and then after that, when they have a high temperature, they might actually start seizing. And once they start having seizures, they might actually go into having seizures on a regular basis, even without fever. This is called febrile seizure, going into a regular seizure. And in this case, I've actually treated children for this, and the child, I still see him, here and there for his acute problems. He was actually treated when he was I think 3 or 4 years old, and now he's 8 years old. He was treated, he just had 3 seizures, after a febrile seizure. And the child was actually put on anti-seizure medication, anti-epileptic medication. And that actually produced a lot of aggressive symptoms. He started becoming aggressive and, had rages. At the age of 4, he used to throw things. It was just bad. So that's why they actually wanted to do something else, because they didn't want the child to be on the medication. So when he went on that, when he started homeopathic medicines, he actually had only 1 seizure after that, and he never had any seizures anymore. So that's in child. And there are different types, somebody would actually have an aura. That is, before they get a seizure, they'll know that they're going to get a seizure. And this is, a different type. And there is something called the grand mal, which is, complete seizure. So I've treated all these different seizures, and the, wonderful, wonderful thing about it is people really think that there is no cure for seizures or epilepsy, and it's not true. I really want people to understand that you don't have to live with it. I saw this one, young man who had seizures, I think 6-7 years, and he has been on medications. Because he is on medications, he can drive. He can go anywhere by himself. So where is the quality of life here? And it's not that just because he is on medications doesn't mean that he is not going to get a seizure. He still gets a seizure. And that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense. That shouldn't make sense to anybody.
Yeah. But he's still on medication, so I guess it makes sense to him.
I guess so, but I think that's where the massive mind programming about this medical mafia system we have comes in. If the doctor says to do it, you do it because, the doctors know best, regardless if it goes against common sense or regardless if it goes against how you feel. Now, real quick, again, it's Las Vegas Homeopathy.com. Do you have a number you can give out on air if people out of state want to reach you and set up a Skype consultation? It's 702-504-7092. And does the Skype consultations pretty much work the same as in person for the most part?
Yes, they'll actually see me, and I can see them, so we get an idea of who we are dealing with, for each other. And also, we would actually do everything by consultation, just like I would see a regular person for 90 minutes for the first consultation, and then the follow-ups would be 30 minutes. So that's a normal consultation, even over Skype.
Okay, so yeah, that's something I didn't even know until last month, that you did people out of state for consultations, which is great, because I know a lot of people hear you and maybe think, wow, I wish Dr. Sowmya was here in Missouri or Florida or whatever, but they can actually get the benefit of your treatment right over the amazing technology of Skype and the internet and all this other great 2013 stuff, I guess, if that's the best way to say it. So thank you so much again for coming on. You are by far my favorite guest and sponsor of the show, and I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Nick, for having me, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Absolutely. There goes Dr. Sowmya Sridharan, and appreciate everyone tuning in to this final edition of Health Conspiracy Radio for 2013, and this extended 2-hour episode with some clips from some of my favorite interviews and dialogue with Leslie and Dr. Sowmya, and it's just been a great year, and I appreciate everyone who's been here from the beginning. I appreciate all the new listeners, and I really look forward to being a part of the team over at Natural News Radio. Of course, joining my friends Robert Scott Bell, Joni Abbott, and Liam Sheff, who is going to be doing a monthly spot here on Health Conspiracy Radio. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, it's going to be every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on naturalnewsradio.com. Every Tuesday, we'll feature Leslie Ann Stoddard co-hosting Riding Shotgun with yours truly. And every Thursday will be a different guest. And so I'm so excited to the people I get to interview and who I'm looking forward to. And again, support the show by going to nongmoapparel.com and purchasing one of our 100% organic cotton shirts. And there you have it. I'm Nick Brannigan. You are listening to Health Conspiracy Radio, and I will see you in the year 2014.